how did you want me to kind of let you just lead and I'll just take your cue, or did we want to ask question for question, or how did you want to do that?
I think we can ask question for question.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'll have you introduce you. I will say who I am, and then you can introduce yourself.
Okay.
Okay. Looks like we are live. Let me go to comments.
Okie doke.
All right. Hi, friends. Welcome to a Thursday evening chat. I'm Nakia. I'm the Wildflower Coach, the founder of Wildflower Lifestyle Coaching, and I am with the Money Smart Nurse, Tiffany Whitaker, tonight. And we're going to talk about nursing and entrepreneurship, how you can have both, the benefits of having both, and talk about what financial security looks like and answer some questions. If you hop in, please let us know where you're from. If you're a nurse, what department you work in, and ask any questions that you may have if we haven't covered them. I have some notes off to the side of my screen. And because I'm not savvy with StreamYard yet and can't get them all up here, I have them off to the side. So that's what you'll probably see. Tiffany, I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a quick bio.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Nakia. So my name is Tiffany, just like you mentioned. I'm also known as the Money Smart Nurse on Instagram. I do have a background of being an oncology nurse for the last 15 years. And as you mentioned, I'm also an entrepreneur. And so my specialty is in financial services, specifically life insurance and retirement planning.
I love that. Awesome. Well, I thank everybody for being here, especially you, Tiffany. I think some of the points, one of the reasons that we wanted to talk about this is because nurses have very high burnout points. And we definitely, I think we've both had an experience where we've known a nurse who has gotten to the end of her career and is not financially prepared for retirement and has to keep working. Nurses definitely have high stress positions. We find ourselves taking care of everybody else before we take care of each other. So my mission is for us to take care of ourselves while we're taking care of everybody else. And your mission sounds like is to help them to be able to enjoy the fruits of that once they're done with nursing or while they're nursing so that it can secure their financial future.
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what financial peace could look like for some of the nurses. I think that we make quite a bit of money. I don't think that we're great financial planners for sure. If you come from my generation, we definitely did not talk about saving or retirement. And what we've learned is you just work until you're not told to work anymore, and that's that. Or you're too ill to work anymore. And
Absolutely.
so one of my missions is to prevent you from being too ill to continue working and to be able to enjoy the rest of your life. And your mission is so that they're financially secure once they get to that point. So, can you tell us a little bit about what financial peace could look like for some of our clients, customers, and friends?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you already say it's peace, right? So I think a lot of it is there's a lot of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
I sit down with nurses and other healthcare professionals and, just anybody in general on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of people have absolutely no idea what retirement looks like for them. They don't know what age. They kind of have this guess, but it's really a lot of guessing game. They don't really know what they have in place. They don't know how much is saved. They don't know how much is coming out of their paycheck, from day to day if they have, retirement through their job. And so financial peace is really just having kind of like a game plan, having direction, having clarity on what that looks like. What should a retirement strategy look like? How much do I need to be saving, every week or 2 weeks or every month or every year? What should my final number look like that's going to not only just sustain me during retirement, but what does that look like? Or do I have enough money saved for just bare necessities, or am I actually going to be able to enjoy retirement and have some extra money and some and cushion, right? We see that inflation and things are getting more and more expensive. So what is that going to look like during retirement? What things should I be looking out for that I have to pay, what expenses and things like that. So it's really just a game plan. And life insurance as well is, hey, what if something happens to me even before retirement, right? How is my family going to get by if my income is taken off of the table? As well as, what if something happens to me where I can't work? What is that going to look like financially, right? So kind of knowing the answers to those things and having something in place, a safety net, is what's going to lead to that financial piece.
Yes. And I have to say that I do feel like nobody wants to look at their finances, right? Like it's terrifying to think about it. But once you have an idea, you can put in parameters, you can start to build towards your wealth. You can make some very good choices as opposed to burying our head in the sand. I think it's something as simple as like I can wear scrubs at work and I wear sweats to work. And then I don't want to talk about what my weight may or may not look like. So I don't put on a pair of jeans, right? I know it's not going the right way, but I'm just going to keep wearing scrubs because they're forgiving. And I'm just going to keep wearing sweats because they're forgiving. But ultimately, if I just get in the jeans, I can stop the trajectory of the weight getting bigger and or me staying unhealthy, and I can actually make some changes to do that. So it's almost the same with financial planning, right? Like I don't know what it looks like, but let me try and get a hold of it now. Let me take a look at it and make a game plan. I love that suggestion. I think definitely as a nurse, we do better when we have a game plan. Um,
Sure.
you know what you're like, what you not want your day or your shift to look like. You know what has to be done. So, what do you want your retirement to look like? Let's make a plan for that. I think that that is very healthy. Um,
Yeah,
I
you're
do love
absolutely
the
right.
idea of leaving a legacy. You spoke about what would it would do for your family, and I talk a lot about generational health, right? So, for me, I try to encourage my clients as well as myself to make sure to make healthy choices and let other people see those healthy choices. And then I have a generation of young ladies and gentlemen behind me that are watching me make these healthy choices. And I'm talking about those things. Can you speak to what it would be like to leave some generational wealth for their family to start having those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see this, these words thrown around a lot lately, is generational wealth, right? But what does that actually, what does it mean, right? What does wealth mean? So I think putting a definition to it, and that definition might be different for me, for you, and for anybody else, right? Some people just simply don't want to leave any debt. So let's start there. Let's
Yeah.
not leave any debt for our families, right? And then what do we want to leave on top of that, right? I think about just my own childhood, adulthood, whatever that looked like, right? I was pretty much starting from scratch. There wasn't a check or a step that I got ahead of anybody else. I had to apply for financial aid, do all those different things that I had to do when it was time to go to nursing school, right? Even though my parents were nurses, my grandparents were nurses, and there's other communities that I would say that are kind of leaving a generational wealth, I would say, and where they're not having to start from scratch, right? There's a college fund saved up already, so we're not worrying about getting loans and having to do all these things, right? Or you're not having to, maybe you have like your parents that can maybe help out financially while you're going to school, so you're not
Mhm.
also working that full-time job and trying to make it happen, right? There's some of those types of things, whether that's leaving a house or car or whatever those things are. Think of financial struggles that maybe you went through early in your age, and maybe if you were to had like some kind of nest egg of some sort to kind of start off with, you wouldn't have had that struggle. And I'm not someone who's opposed to hard work. I think we all do need to hard work, or work hard, in order to, build, strength and character
Yes.
and all of that. But I do think if you had some kind of, financial foundation, that would be helpful. But I also don't want to dismiss financial literacy. So
Right.
even if we leave money or we don't leave money, whatever that is, just like how you're saying you want to leave healthy habits, for the generations that are coming after you, right? Your children, your grandchildren, you want them to have healthy habits because they're watching you and what you do, right? If you're going to the grocery store and you're picking up chips and ice cream and sodas and whatnot, they're going to be doing the same things because that's what you're feeding them, and it's going to go on and so forth, right? And
Right.
that's what we're getting fed on TV anyways, so they're going to be falling into those traps, right? But financial literacy is the same exact thing, right? And we need to be having those conversations. We don't have those conversations at the dinner table. What does a healthy savings look like? What does an emergency fund look like? We shouldn't be thrown off our trajectory of life because our attire popped,
Right.
or we need some kind, our air conditioner went out, right? We should be prepared for those kind of things. And what I find is that's throwing people off. They can't pay bills, they can't do this, they can't do that. They're not saving for retirement, they're not saving for anything because they're barely trying to get those things together. And those are normal things that are going to happen, right?
Mhm.
So these are the things that we need to be talking about. We need to talk about life insurance, and the reason is we know death is going to happen to all of us, right?
Yes.
We don't know when it's going to happen, so let's just be prepared for it. And life insurance is the quickest way that you can initiate generational wealth. You can get you a policy that's very, very affordable, but it's going to leave your family 1 million, 2 million, $3 million, right?
Right.
It doesn't have to be just about burial. It can be like, hey, I'm going to cover myself, all my debts and whatever, and also leave you some extra so you can go, do something with that. And then just having those conversations about retirement and what we're doing with our money and where our money is, so
Yes.
that there's no guesswork. We know how that goes, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's just like you said, it's healthy habits, movement, nutrition, but we need to add money into that conversation.
It does. I feel like it makes you whole. I one of the number one stressors for, I'm sure, nurses, moms, single moms, married moms is finances, right?
Mhm.
So if you have some sense of control over that, that's one less thing that you have to be stressed about. There's there's so many of us that are living paycheck to paycheck. But if part of your paycheck that you're just living paycheck to paycheck is going to your future, and if you aren't saving, if you're working yourself to the bone and now you've had a stroke, what does that look like for your finances? What does that look like for your family? What does that look like? So this is rattling around in the back of your mind, and I can speak to this because it was rattling around in mine when I went through my life transition. I was working alongside 70-year-old women who could not take time off. It wasn't, some of them were there because they were bored. They really just picked up 1 or 2 days a week, but some of them needed to be there full time because they didn't have an exit strategy.
Yeah.
And I just did not want that to be my future. I really didn't. I want to be very spry because they were at 70. I want to be able to move around and be healthy, but I don't want to have to do these things. I want to make the choice to go and take care of other people. I want to be able to make the choice to take a vacation and not have to worry about my PTO or my retirement. And I don't want to retire and then the next week somebody's burying me and I've never got a chance to enjoy any of that. That doesn't sound like a good trajectory to me. That doesn't sound like a life fulfilled. And I don't want to leave my family strapped with, like you said, the debt, the worry, the burial. I want to set that up. I do feel like it's a tough conversation. And just like having the conversation about what our parents want for death, I had to sit down with my father and my stepmother and be like, please write down for me what you want. I got a form offline. I pulled it up. I had him fill it out. I don't want to argue with my siblings about what is going to happen. I need to know where the life insurance policies are, who does what would you like? And then there's no discussion about it. And so I got to grieve in peace. And
Yeah.
this isn't necessarily just about the grief process, but I got to grieve in peace without the worry. And I don't think that you think that far ahead until you've walked it. And
Yeah.
because I've walked it, I feel like I want to share that. Have a
Yeah.
plan. I have life insurance on everybody in our family. We are covered. It's an expense. It just goes into the bills. Do I love that I have to give that money away? No. But I do love that I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to, it's not something that's rumbling around like, oh, when this happens, what am I going to do? Am I going to be able to take time off to grieve? Am I going to be able to bury them properly? Am I going to be able to honor what they want? So that just definitely has been my experience.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate I appreciate you sharing that because that's exactly what it is, and good for you for having that plan. I mean, just like you mentioned, just stressors, things like that. Like I can imagine that you having those things in place, it might not seem like it at the moment, but I'm sure that did take a weight or a stress off of your shoulders, right?
Hmm.
I think one, a lot of us nurses are we're women, so which means we're also a lot of us are mothers, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of decisions that we have to make on day to day. And you kind of got that squared away, check that box so that you don't have to come back and return to it again. And once that, the inevitable happens, that's one less decision that you have to make at that time, right?
Yes.
And some of the stress that you take off because I'm sure you've seen, and this goes hand in hand with what you do, right? Loss is in recovering from that loss, that grief is something that you can potentially be struggling with.
Right.
And so having that in place is really gonna really help when that time comes. So yeah.
Yes. So, what are some of the biggest myths about life insurance, especially for nurses who thinks that it's just death coverage? Because that's what a lot of people think that it is. So,
Yeah, there's quite a few myths. I would say, okay, let's start with one. This is just a myth in general, is that I'm young. I don't need life insurance. I'm single. I don't have children. There's nobody, that's relying on me.
right,
If something happens to me, why do I need to get life insurance? Well, when you're young and you're healthy, it's cheap. It's really, really cheap. And are you going to be single, no children for the rest of your life? And everyone has their own, deal, but
right.
you may, so it's good to just get it right now, while you're young and you're healthy, but there's other ways to utilize life insurance. And so one of those things is living benefits. So you mentioned, right, stressors leading to heart attacks, strokes, cancer, long-term care needs, meaning you can't perform 2 out of your 6 ADLs, right?
Right.
Life insurance can actually pay out while you're still alive, and a lot of people don't realize that. Life insurance, whether it's your term policies, your cheap term policies, or your permanent policies, they're both going to come, or they both can come, if you're working with the right carrier, with living benefits to cover
Mhm.
those type of things. So just covering your health, is a reason for doing that, and you can use it as a cash building, a wealth building, vehicle, and we can go into that at at a different time or a different question. The other myth that I would say too is, hey, I've got life insurance through my job. Most of us through our employers are going to have life insurance through our jobs, which is great. I'm glad if you have life insurance through your job. One, usually it's not going to come with those living benefits. Um, Second, you might not be able to take it with where you go, and there's not a lot of nurses who are staying with the same hospital for the next 50 years, right? You're going from one place to another place, potentially. So in
Right.
those gaps, you don't have life insurance, and then once you finally do retire or stop, you're not going to have any more life insurance. And so that's one of those myths. So now that you've retired, you're trying to get coverage, and now it's more expensive. It's expensive because you're older, and it's expensive because you potentially have been diagnosed with some kind of a health condition or have had some kind of health condition happen to you.
Hmm.
And so we also got to think about, right? Us as nurses, we usually are getting paid a decent amount of salary, right? So think about your life insurance, go look at it and see what your employer is actually offering you. Oftentimes it's a small amount compared to what your actual salary is. So you got to imagine if you were taken from this world and your income is no longer with your family, is $50,000 going to cover it? No, it's not going to cover. It's going to cover your burial expenses and maybe a tad bit more, but is will your spouse and your children be able to continue the life that they're living right now with removing your income? So you've got to think about that and how much it is. Um and the other thing is people just think it's expensive, but you need to work with someone who's going to sit down and figure out what your needs are and figure out what a good healthy amount is that you need and how much that's going to cost based on where you're at in life. That's the other myth that I see surrounding it.
Yes, I totally agree. I love that you spoke to living benefits. So when I came to your event, I have life insurance. I had to go and make sure that we had living benefits because I was
Yes.
like, that is, we have experienced that. We have walked the space of needing living benefits. And if you could share, I think you shared with me a story of a gentleman who needed to use living benefits. And I don't think, and we could probably touch on this more, but
Sure.
definitely it is so important because you can be alive and ill and need those benefits that you have put away already for life and for death.
Yeah,
So I loved knowing about that. And thank goodness we do have it. But I was like, if we don't have that, we've been paying for the wrong thing. And thank goodness we do. We are covered. But there are so many people. I think it's a lot of information that people just don't know.
for sure. Yeah.
I also think some people are in a space where they lack trust. They lack trust in financial things that they don't know about. They lack trust in they may think that people who sell life insurance they're trying to sell them something that isn't true. And
Yes.
so I think speaking to people who have walked the walk, who are taking care of you, who can give you honest answers that you can research, that's what you should be looking for.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I
um
think for me, like to speak to my clients about, again, the healthy habits to help you to be well while you're, before you need those benefits for sure.
Yeah, and I would say, what it is that you do, right? When you're advocating for healthy habits
Hmm.
now, right? As we mentioned, one, we want to prevent any of those health issues from happening. It is expensive, right?
Right.
And great that we have living benefits, but let's use them while we're a little bit older, right? Because I mean,
Yes.
we're gonna need them, right? Even if we live to the 80s, 90s, chances are we're gonna need, some assistance at some point. So great, you got living benefits. But what you're doing with the healthy habits is trying to avoid those things, especially at a younger age. I mean, who wants
Yes.
to have to tap into your living benefits in your 50s and your 60s,
Right.
even in your 70s, right? I don't want to do that. I want
Yeah.
to put that off as much as possible. A lot of what eats away at our retirement savings are health issues. A lot of people, like right now, people can't see it right now, but I got my leg propped up because I just had a knee surgery, and that was expensive. Those bills added, oh my gosh, they added up so fast. So what you're talking about with healthy habits and moving and things like that is you're just enriching our lives for a longer period of time.
Right.
And if we're going to move into retirement, why not move into retirement being able to actually move?
Yes.
So I don't know if you want me to touch on the living benefits, or do you want to touch on having healthy habits now?
Um, I can touch on the healthy habits
Sure.
now. I definitely feel like for me, the healthy habits start with mindset. I always say that it's your mindset. It is what is your ultimate goal? And you can do something as simple as picking a goal, picking a phrase, picking a word, picking a theme for what you want your life to be like. And this can change. It can evolve. You can start very simple, but picking your why and then moving forward with that. So if your why is that you just want to see your growing family grow up, how are we going to do that? What does that look like? What does your mindset look like? It is hard to create new habits, but it's even harder to be sick and young. It's even harder to know that you have to ask your young family to take care of you when some of these things could have been prevented. So, I am an advocate for mental health wellness 100%. I do feel like whether you have a coach or a therapist or both, they should be a part of your team per se. So I would say you're going to create a team with healthy mindset. And then once you have healthy mindset, I do think that you can do some things like journaling. You can do things like just picking two new habits to make into lifelong things, whether that is spending 15 minutes meditating, 15 minutes in silence. That is important. Making sure that you have a bedtime routine, making sure that you're well hydrated. It's so simple, yet we just don't do them. I spend a lot of time telling other people what they're supposed to do to be healthy. And it took me forever to realize, why aren't you doing the things you're telling other people to do? Like, I have a whole education spiel to tell these ladies on what to do. I wasn't doing any of those things. And then I looked at these 70-year-old nurses and I'm like, I won't ever be as fit as them if I don't get this together, if I don't get my mindset right and then start to build some healthy habits. And I think along with that comes community.
Mhm.
I want everybody to get curious about what's out there, who can you learn from? Get beyond your little space. I grew up in a small town in Iowa, and thank God I was born with a sense of adventure because I can only imagine what I would have missed if I wasn't curious about the rest of the world, if I wasn't curious about other activities, other spaces where other people didn't look like me. I still ventured into them. I I didn't feel like there was a room I wasn't supposed to be in. I didn't feel like there wasn't something wasn't for me. And so I just encourage people to explore that. I'm happy to encourage you and to give you the confidence and teach you how to build that awareness and that sense of adventure to see what is out there for you and to start talking about healthy habits. Something's really small and it goes a long way.
Yeah.
So,
I love that you share that because I think those are, like you said, those are just small things that we can change on a
mhm.
day to day. And I feel like that's why it's important to have someone in coming from the background that you have and the knowledge that you have, but then going into the coaching space. So
Yes.
it seems so simple, but you need someone like yourself, a coach, to one just break down a small plan, right? Because I
Yes.
feel like we're all over the place, right? It's like, okay, nurses were working these crazy hours sometimes, then we're managing the household, then we're like, we're notorious for not taking care of ourselves, just like you said.
100%.
But sometimes I don't think it's, we know we need to take care of ourselves, but what does that look like? What
Right.
small change can I integrate into my day to day, right? And so you need a coach like yourself to create a plan, keep you accountable to that plan, and then
Yes.
talk you off the ledge when you think,
I don't
things
want
are
to do
going
this.
to
For
left field.
sure.
Yeah. So what would you say, like I said, we are notorious for not taking care of ourselves. Why, what do you think that is? What does that look like for nurses? Do you feel like our mental health leads to the physical health issues, or vice versa, right? Then you get hurt and then you can spiral
Yes.
into, what do you see mostly when it comes to nurses?
I feel like it is our mental health is not in a good space. And then as we keep moving, we kind of put it on the back burner. And then our physical health becomes a problem. And your body is going to sit you down. I recently read a book, The Body Keeps Score, and it is going to put you down one way or the other. So you're either going to deal with the things that you're putting on the back burner, or they're going to deal with you. And so I do think as caregivers, you're naturally, your instinct is to just give to other people. And then a lot of times we don't know how to do it. We don't know where to start. I can tell you from experience that there were many times that I wanted to start a health journey and I started it because somebody else, it looked great for them, but that wasn't the journey for me. That wasn't an exercise regimen that I could follow and I could keep up. That wasn't a diet plan that I could follow and I could keep up with. None of that was going to bring me joy. And it is very personal. There are so many options, but it's very personal. And you have to get still with yourself. You have to do some mindset work. What do you want to do? I like to lift weights. I like to do Pilates. I like to do yoga. Some people like to run. You love to play basketball. So it's very different. And you can't, it always looks great on somebody else, but if it's not for you, it's not for you. And so
Right.
I do think knowing yourself, I don't think we know ourselves very much because we've been taught that that's selfish. We've been taught that spending an hour by yourself to go to the gym is selfish. We've been taught that making a meal that is full of greens and healthy protein is the wrong thing when everybody else is ordering McDonald's. I'm notorious for that.
Me too.
I will bring a salad and somebody will say they're ordering, and I'm definitely going to order. Guess what? I had to realize I don't like salad. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, lettuce is not for me. And I had to be real about that.
Right.
If I'm going to eat my vegetables, I need to eat them on the days that I eat at home with my family.
Hmm.
Period.
Hmm.
And if I'm going to have a burger, own that I'm going to have a burger. But that's my 20% of not eating well versus the 80% that I am eating well. It has to be some harmony. But you have to be clear about what works for you. You have to be clear about what's going to bring you joy. What movement makes you happy? Some people love Zumba. I like Zumba. I'm not coordinated. So it's a very fun activity for me, but it's not something that I'm going to spend money to go to all the time. However, I will spend my good money to do Pilates or yoga and lift weights. Somebody else may just be like, I just want to walk and I can walk 6 or 7 miles a day. And that's enough for me. So I think being still with yourself, knowing yourself, realizing that it's not selfish to take care of yourself. What a gift you are giving to your family if they get the best version of you all the time or a healthier version. None of us are perfect. It's never going to be all right. But if you give them a better version of you, how great is that? What a gift. If my children don't have to help me to the bathroom in my 80s, they'll appreciate that. They know that they might have to, but the point of fact is if they don't, then they don't. And how great. How great will it be if they can celebrate a 90th birthday with me in a venue versus in a nursing home? Or if, so I think it's important to start with your mental health and your mindset, and then pick two small habits, get a community of people, get some support because it's hard to start something new and to keep accountable. And so that's my spiel for sure.
No, I love that. I do want to circle back to something that you said, right? The gift of being able, right? Now let's just say we know there's some things are just inevitable. They're going to
Right.
happen. It is what it is, right? There's some things that you can't get away from. So we're not talking about that, but let's talk about the things that we can prevent, because you shared with me a story of a woman in her retirement age, and now we're going on, right? We think of, what do we think about retirement? We think of cruises, we think of
Yes.
traveling around the world, we think of playing with our grandchildren,
Hmm.
we think of all those things. But guess what? What's going to make all of those things, I don't want to use the word burden, but what's going to make it less fun and less
Yes.
enjoyable? It's when you have these health issues, right?
Yes.
So, as you mentioned, when this woman is now in her retirement years, worked so hard, and now finally has retired, now we're having to stop every,
Yes.
few feet to get our air, to, give our legs a rest. We're having to get someone to wheelchair us around the airport, and then now through whatever. So where is that stopping you from going? Because we know so and so has to be in the wheelchair. Where
Yes.
can that wheelchair go? Where can it not go? Does the rest of the family go on without them? Do they stay at home? Do they, what do you do, right? You say
Right.
you want to play with your grandchildren. Well, how much less can you play with your grandchildren when you're not able, right? And so, again, these some of these things are preventable. So I love that, that you mentioned that. So what are some, like, I know when you actually brought that up when we were actually meeting the other time, I was like, a light bulb just went off. And like, you're right. Like, obviously, that's not where I want to be. But it's just like, oh my gosh, yeah. Not only do we need to have our finances together in retirement, but we need to have our legs. We need to have our
Yes.
arms. We need to have our lungs. To
Yes.
truly, truly enjoy those retirement years. So, what does that look like? With you having those conversations with nurses, because we do have a pretty physically demanding job,
We
right?
do. We do. We have very physically demanding jobs, so we are not healthy as a culture for nurses. And part of that is time constraint. Part of that is we all have too much on our plate. I don't know a nurse that doesn't have too much on her plate. And so I think that's part of our caregiving personality that just comes with it's a burden that we're always going to carry. I encourage everybody to spend 30 minutes a day in movement. I don't care what you do. I don't care if it's making an extra trip to take your patient water so that you get those steps in. I don't care if it's swimming. That being able to do a squat isn't just about me wanting to have my 20-year-old bum back. It is because I want to be able to get up and down off the toilet without having to yell for somebody to come and help me. So, very simply, one of the things I definitely encourage people to do, start your morning with some stretches and some water. Make sure
That's
that
simple.
you follow up with your physician. Let's practice some preventative care. None of
Yes.
us like to go to the doctor. And let me just tell you, it is so tedious trying to get an appointment. But prevention is 80% of your relief. If you can prevent something, you know your body. And if you don't, spend some time with it. Spend some time in silence. You have 30 minutes to give to yourself. You deserve it. It is a gift. You give it to everybody else, but you don't give it to yourself. And start simple, like setting a timer. Here's my 30 minutes, and make everybody in your family aware. Everybody in your sphere that needs something from you needs to know, like, this is a sacred time. The old adage of you teach people how to treat you, you teach people how to honor your time. You teach people how to honor your energy. But if you don't know how to honor your time and energy, you can't hold anybody else accountable to that. And so once you learn that, it becomes a skill, and it's going to serve you well into your future. And I think, again, anybody else who's watching it, they get to bring it into their future. So then we create a whole nother generation of healthier people, healthier women, healthier nurses, healthier entrepreneurs, healthier construction workers. It's a trickle effect. It goes, it starts at the top, and you just teach them all. All of my grandchildren go for walks with me.
Mhm.
My granddaughters, for sure, they know that I'm probably going for a walk almost every night that I'm at home. It isn't about martyrism. It is about, I need to move my body. This is one of the best ways to help my mental health and to keep my joints fluid. And guess what? I've taught these young ladies how to take care of themselves. I'm teaching them that physical health and fitness is important. Nobody taught me that, and that isn't a dig at anybody who came before me. We just weren't talking about it. It wasn't a thing. Your life looked very different. I have a ton of conveniences. I get my groceries delivered. I can get everything delivered and dropped off, and so I don't have to do the work that the people before me did, which alleviates a lot of time.
Right.
I have time. The same the same complaint that I would be like, "Oh, I don't have 45 minutes to walk on a treadmill. I have 45 minutes to stand in my kitchen and run my mouth about family gossip. I got 45 minutes I could have walked that around the block." And I have to be very careful in Texas cuz it's always 80 degrees.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a matter of planning and moving around. So I do think that it's important. Small steps, little bits. Like, you're not going to change everything overnight. I have not given up McDonald's. I don't care how many times I lift weights. I'm just not. My husband asks all the time, like, when are you going to outgrow this? I'm not really sure I am. I'm almost 50.
Yeah.
But it's a crutch for me. I
Right.
like it. I can justify it because I make healthier choices other places. So,
Right. I think that's okay. And I mean, I think if there's certain things that bring you joy,
yes.
for lack of a better term. I think that's okay, or it's a reward, or of
Yes.
sorts, right? Because you exercise discipline for a certain amount, and then but also I think you also have planned it, right? You said
Yes.
this is not something I'm going to give up, and it's not something I want to give up, but
Mm-mm.
where can it fit in my plan, right?
Yes.
So I think that's probably more important than anything. We all are going to have our indulgences.
Hmm.
So why not plan for it and exercise discipline, 90% of the time, or 80% of the time, is like what you said. So
And I think that goes back to the financial planning, right? Like you have your indulgences. Like some people may not want to give up getting nails done, but you can give up something else to plan for your future. I think that you can funnel, just as you can speak about, like you can make a financial plan based on any budget. Like you, let's make it work with your budget that works for you. I think I think that that is important. For nurses who are also entrepreneurs or want to be, what kinds of financial protection or retirement strategies should they consider?
So I would say definitely having, if you're a nurse who either wants to become an entrepreneur, or do both, is like what I'm doing right now, right?
Hmm.
But the intent is to be a full-time entrepreneur, right? So I need to make sure that my retirement strategy is outside of my employer.
Okay.
So that's something I actually started on early on in my nursing career, because I was exposed to this industry early on, thank God. So I started building my retirement outside of nursing. It gave me a little bit more control. It didn't matter who my employer was. And I also, didn't have to worry about market losses and things like that. And so it gave me some peace of mind, a foundation to have outside of nursing. There's also a lot of people who feel like they're tied to their employer, because they were offered a pension. I was one of those people. I had a pension, where there's not a lot of that going on anymore. But a lot of people felt like they needed to stay there,
Right.
no matter what the circumstances, just because they had a pension. But this, creating something outside of my employer, actually gave me, I have control. I created my own pension of sorts. Um, let's see. And as far as nurses who want to be business owners as well, doing something with that additional cash is also something that I do. So I help business owners create their retirement strategy, or even just grow their wealth. There's a lot of nurses who want to, they open up like those group homes, or
Hmm.
different things like that. Real estate is something very common, that people do. But you can also create, within life insurance, you can create something that can allow you to purchase assets and things like that. So say you want to get that group home, something that you can borrow from and actually fund certain things that you have to pay for as a business owner, is just one of the things that I do. But there's a variety of things that we can do to help business owners. The other thing that I would say, to nurses who want to be business owners, is we already have a full-time job, right? So having a coach, having a mentor, having somebody that you can go to, so that you're not just starting from scratch and you're
Right.
having to learn so many mistakes. That person, that coach, or that mentor, can actually help you avoid some of those things, and
Right.
can take some of the guesswork. Where I am, I have a system in place. I have a coach in place. I have all these different mentors and peers that can help me, so that I don't have to start from scratch, being that I already work a full-time job and I'm already a single parent on one end. I don't really have time for those kind of mistakes, and those mistakes can be very costly
Hmm.
financially as well. So I think having something like that in place, is very, very important. And I think, like what you mentioned too, when it comes to the healthy habits, and mental health as well. If you're going to be a nurse and you're going to be a business owner, which is not for the faint of heart, you need to be taking
Yeah.
care of those things. You need to have energy. You need to have an outlet of some sort, where you're balancing things, stress and health wise. What about you? What would you say?
I agree 100% with what you said. You do need a support system. You do need to find someone that you can trust, that can help to guide you along. I know that it can be very scary. I'm very thankful for the people who I've come across, you included, that have been very helpful and integral in my entrepreneurship, because I was used to going to work and coming home. Like, I had a full-time job, and so having to even change my schedule to be able to build in a business schedule, a work schedule. And I had all of this free time because my baby is 17 now, but I needed to figure out a way to put all of these pieces together. And so I was thankful to be able to watch other entrepreneurs and ask questions for people who had come before me to do that. But I definitely could not have started my entrepreneur journey had I not already been in a place of creating healthy habits, because I would have just been all over the place. If I didn't have some of the other things kind of partially together and have a schedule for myself and have some grassroots, I have some very rooted habits that are just, they're non negotiable for me anymore. And if I didn't have those, I can very easily put myself down to pick something up. So had I not been built the discipline that I have in the healthy habits, I definitely would, my health would have gone to the wayside, and I would have been busy chugging over here to get my coaching business off the ground. Well, that wouldn't have served me, because then I would have been unhealthy with the coaching business that I can't take care of.
Right.
So at the very root of it, my health was, it's the foundation. And if I don't have that, I can't do anything else. So I'm grateful for those habits. So I do agree, like you do, and you need support system, you need community. You need to be able to see other people doing what you're doing and ask questions. I think a lot of times we're afraid to ask questions because you don't want to seem like you don't know, or trust is an issue. I don't know if everybody has trust issues that I have, but I feel like I'm very skittish. I don't read people well, and I think that everybody is great until you show me otherwise. Well, again, that can be costly and dangerous.
Sure.
And so having other people who have better discernment than me, that love me enough, want to protect me enough to be able to come along and be like, no, maybe, and to be able to help with that. I think that that's important. And you can't do it alone. We're not meant to do any of this alone. I think you have to ask for help. If you're confused about your finances, get with the financial advisor. If you're confused about life insurance, get with somebody who does life insurance. If you're confused about or you're concerned about entrepreneurship and nursing, like, speak to someone who's walking in the trenches. And everybody isn't for you. I mean, in every
Right.
story you may not relate to, but you have to get out there. And again, be curious about whether or not this is for you or if it's not. But for more than anything, a financial peace and security, I think. And
What
that's
would you
another one of my rooted habits.
what would you say being a nurse, having that background has helped you in being a business owner, being an entrepreneur?
Um, I think the ability to kind of compartmentalize things and have a system, and to be able to delegate. So there are some things that I need, like, you need to know about how to do everything running your business. But there are some things that's not my specialty. Like, I'm not good at that. So am I in a position to be able to trade a service until my income looks this way, till I can pay for somebody else to do this? But being able to compartmentalize things, like, this is for me to do, this is for somebody else to do. And I just a continual learner as well. As a nurse, you are continually learning. Like, health and medicine changes often, policy changes often, people are very different. So I do think that my delegation skills, my ability to be able to compartmentalize and have a system. I have a tick list in my head of what happens when I have to take a patient to the OR. So I have a whole tick list some sense of what happens when I have to start and onboard a new client. That was challenging for me to be able to get that system set up. But once I did, I'm like, oh, I had to put it in different terms.
Yeah, I agree with you. Putting it into different terms, because you realize that, especially, with what we do is is different from what we do as a nurse, right?
Yes.
Nurses think, oh man, can I do financial services? I don't know anything about money. But what I try to tell people who are other healthcare providers or nurses is that we actually have a lot of transferable skills. We
Yes.
just need to kind of turn this into, okay, how would a nurse approach this situation, right? We know how to assess, right?
Hmm.
We know how to then diagnose,
Yes.
obviously our nursing diagnosis is, right? We can plan, we
Hmm.
implement, and we evaluate. That's literally what we learned in nursing school, and that's literally what we do as business owners. And I can
Yes.
tell you, especially even in financial services, that's what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis with my clients. But we also, we're educators. It's what we do naturally. It's what we do, right?
Right.
We have tough conversations, right, on a very regular basis. And so we can have tough conversations. We can keep it real when we need to keep it real, right?
Right.
Because it's not to be harsh, but it's for your own good, right?
Yes.
So that's something we do naturally. And we might not all be extroverted, but we are all used to talking with people,
Correct.
and you and I know is very important that we met face to face, not just here on social media,
Yes.
because we're that kind of people, right? We
Right.
know how to have conversations with people. So I think that's something that's a huge skill that not everybody has,
Very
when
much
it comes
so.
to communication, right? And I think you hit one that was super big, is delegation. We can't do it all alone. Like you said, we're not meant to do it all alone. There's things that are meant for me. There's some things that are meant for you. There's things we've got different skills,
Right.
and whatnot. So I do think, because being a business owner, is leadership, and part of leadership is being able to delegate for sure.
Yes. And I do like that you mentioned that everyone's not extroverted and you don't have to be. I do think that people have this misconception. I can put a lot of information online and I think I put quite a bit of content out. I'm an ambivert, so I can be both, right? But I know some people who are very introverted who have great skills that their audience, their clientele, their gifts are waiting for somebody else to see them. They're
Yes.
holding on to them because you need to be. I do better on in an in-person meeting. My personality, who I am, the warmth of who I am, shows better in person. So I want to get to know people in person, and that doesn't always happen. This I'm fine online or whatever, but I don't think you get exactly who I am until like we've had a in-person thing. That may not be for everybody. However, somebody who's very introverted may have such a gift that you don't have to be extroverted to share that with somebody. You can still be somebody's financial planner. You can still be somebody's trip advisor. You can still be somebody's real estate agent. You can still be someone's nursing home director. You can still do all of these things that you don't necessarily have to be extroverted. There's a group of entrepreneurs who are introverted that I had joined. I'm not an introvert, but I know that there are people that are. I work with a nurse who's super introverted. But when I tell you her patients leave well educated, she doesn't have to have a personal conversation with them. Her conversation with them is to educate them for their health, and that's her directive. That's what she does, and she does it well. Now, does she want to have small talk with them? Absolutely not. Is she exhausted at the end of the shift? Absolutely, because her social tank is done. But her job is to educate the people and give them information while they're there. She does a fantastic job at that. She doesn't really want to be your friend later, though. Like that's just who she is. And so you can do both. So I love that you mentioned introversion. So
Yeah, absolutely. And being a business owner, you've got to get out your comfort zone, right? You've got to get
oh,
out of your comfort zone. So,
yes.
there's a lot of things that, we can use as what we, would say excuses. But if you truly do want to shoot for something, you just got to get uncomfortable, whatever that may be.
Yes. So, Tiffany, tell me what you have coming up. Where are people can find you if they need to get a hold of you, and possibly any services that you can provide for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, you can obviously contact me on any of my social media. I'm on Instagram as Money Smart Nurse, Facebook under my name and Money Smart Nurse, and then LinkedIn under my first and last name, Tiffany Whitaker. You can direct message me on any of those platforms. Also, if you are in the local DFW area, we do have a free financial workshop locally in Carrollton. If you want information on that, please reach out. I would love to personally invite you, where you're going to learn some basic financial concepts and strategies, retirement strategies, just financial literacy in general. You don't get that information in high school, you don't get it in college. So
No.
take advantage of a free financial workshop if you can. So reach out to me for that. I do a health care focused educational event as well, as you already know that.
Yes.
And my next one is going to be in the end of August. I'm just waiting on to recover here, so I'll have that date and I'll announce that on my Instagram as soon as we have secured that, and I know I'm cleared to stand without crutches. But yeah, so you can reach me on any social media. I would say if you want to, I do free client assessments. So all it is just a brief look of what you have going on financially. And if it makes sense to make recommendations, then I make recommendations. If you just need a, just say, hey, pat on the back, you're doing a good job, you're, good, good trajectory, I'm going to do that too. But it does give people peace of mind when they've had a professional kind of sit down with them. I am here to educate, and if I can serve you in any way, great. But I just want to have a conversation where I can at least just provide some value, provide some education, but more on a individual basis outside of the other events that I have going on. So you can reach me through my social media for that. Again, it's free, so why not take advantage of it?
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's what I would say. Start there. I would also say just also know what it is that you already have in place, right? So
Yes.
make sure you know, hey, what is your retirement strategy through your employer if that's what you have going on? What does that look like? How much do you have saved up? How much is being contributed? Is your employer contributing to that? When can you touch that money? A lot of people don't realize that a lot of times they can't touch that money until after 59 and a half or maybe even 65 for certain things. Do you have life insurance in place? If you do have life insurance in place, how much? As you mentioned, does it have living benefits? Who are your beneficiaries? Do your beneficiaries know that they are beneficiaries, so if something happens, this is what they need to do, right? Who's your life
Right.
insurance agent if something happens? Do they know how to contact them? Those type of things. But again, that's something that I do help provide coaching and clarity for. And my sole purpose of what I want to do is I just want to empower people. I want to empower people through financial literacy, through financial education. And that's kind of, that's exactly what my vision is, and what I want to provide to the community. And Akia, how about you? How can you be reached? What do you have going on?
So I have to say, and I have to reiterate this, the knowledge of where your money is, where it's going, and what you're doing or not doing with it is powerful. We Turning a blind eye is not helpful. The stress about it is going to be there. It's better to just kind of know, have some information, and be able to make some very educated decisions about your future. Is I cannot speak to it enough. Just it is very important. I think everybody needs to sit down with it. If you have a full-time job, if you're paying taxes, if somebody's taking money out of your paycheck for retirement, you need to have a financial plan together. And I definitely would encourage you to sit down with Tiffany again. Like she said, it's free. It's not going to hurt anything for you to have this information. So you can find me at the Wildflower Coach on Instagram, and Wildflower Lifestyle Coaching on Facebook. You can also check me out on my website. I do have a live series that I'm going to start next week for empty nester moms. I'm really changing my focus to empty nesters and nursing. I really wanted to hone in on a specific group of people. And this is a group of people that I feel like is very much ignored. I tried to stay away from coaching nurses just because I felt like it just seemed very redundant, but it is definitely a need. And I definitely want to speak to empty nester moms. And so I have that coming on the 23rd of this month. I also have a LinkedIn Live, and I will put some, I need to do an event calendar on my socials. So you can find me there. I am planning to do a back to school breakfast for moms who have children going back to school, and that's going to be local. And I'm going to try and keep it in the Midlothian, Mansfield, Waxahachie area, just because everything that I do ends up on the north side of DFW, which I don't mind, but I really would like to build community closer to where I live so I can just have better touch points. And so I'm scouting restaurants. If you know any cute little restaurants that serve breakfast and can host 12 lovely mamas, please send me a message, text me, send them in a DM. I would love to be able to support a small business, a Black owned business, a woman owned business. But in the meantime, I'm going to be scouting those, and I'm trying to do that at the end of August after everybody gets their babies back to school, settled, and all of that. But if you need any encouragement, any support, between now and when you send your babies off to college, high school, middle school, kindergarten, any of that, just because you got other people at home, that doesn't mean that your nest isn't going to be a little emptier. Please join my group, Becoming Me, a soulful space for growth and grace. And I'm trying to hop in there more often to give support and encouragement. And I also offer a free consultation if you would like to find out if we're a good fit for coaching, if I'm somebody who you need, or if I can refer you to another coach or a therapist. So I thank you, Tiffany, for taking this time and agreeing to do this. This was such a good idea. So,
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and getting me set up with your platform and whatnot. But I definitely I love how we've got the same background, but a lot of what we aim to educate on is it actually goes hand in hand and creates a
mhm,
more holistic approach
yes.
for our lives.
And I feel like we could talk on, I had a couple other questions that we didn't get to because I'm long-winded, but I
Oh, me
think
too.
that we could probably just hop on another live maybe in a week or two. And I definitely want to talk more about living benefits, some of the other parts of entrepreneurship, some of the other pain points of nursing and taking care of ourselves. So you'll see
100%.
us again.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you for your time, friends.
All right.